Hi, I'm Chris Higa, product developer for the Mini LMT, and today we're going to talk about TLR tuned shock parts for the Mini LMT. So the tools for today, you're going to use trusty 1.5 millimeter wrench. Always have a 2 millimeter handle just in case you need to take the body off. We have a 4 millimeter nut driver and a 5.5 if we need to take the wheels off. And then some pliers just in case you need to get access to some of the things. But to get started, we'll open up the body here so we can get access to the chassis. The TLR tuned parts that you'll see consist of an aluminum body shock. So we'll have the upper shock mounts and the lower shock mounts. So TLR tuned parts, what makes them TLR tuned is it's not just a part that's developed for strength or durability, but it has to add and enhance some type of tuning to make the vehicle work better. So the shocks, the aluminum shock bodies, they're just going to be more consistent. It's stiffer than the composite plastic body. It's a smoother bore. So you just get a better performance out of that. What you get in the TLR tuned shock mounts is you get an added mounting position. So you can see that there's two shock there's an inner and outer hole. So you have an option of where you mount the shocks. You can mount them both to the inside, both to the outside. You can mount them inside on the upper, outside on the lower. You can change the angle of the shock, and that gives you a little bit different feeling in how the vehicle goes through the stroke of the shock. So we're going to start going and we're going to make some of these changes. So we're going to start by removing the shocks. So removing the shocks, like in the prior video with the chassis braces, you want to be careful when you take out the top screws on the shocks, because the shock bushing has a little front piece cap to it that's easy to lose. So be very careful when you take these out. So when we take this out, obviously see I dropped the shock bushing there, the front cap. And we're going to remove the other side. Right, now we're going to take the lower shock screws out here. So this will once you get the lower screws out, you can take the shocks off. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually change the lower shock mounts on the axle housing itself. So you have two screws on each lower shock mount, and we're going to remove those screws to remove and replace them with the TLR tuned version. The TLR tuned shock mounts, these are not side specific because you are actually replacing the lower mount, and it's actually going to be nutted on the backside. Simply because with all the way that these parts move, having to put Loctite into that thing sometimes makes it really, really hard. With as small as these screws are, they're easy to get damaged. So we decided to make sure that we'll put a nut and bolt on those things. The ear, the second hole, goes towards the tire. So you can see that there's one hole here which is the same as the standard hole, and then you have an outside hole. And then just replace the two screws that you removed. So you'll notice that they kind of snap into the axle housing. Two button head screws back in. Right, now that the lower mounts are changed, we're now going to change the upper mounts. So that's just removing the two screws here on each side. All right, we're actually going to set these next to each other so you can see the difference in those mounts. So we're going to put the mount back into the same location. So we are in the middle center location in the taller set of holes. All right, so now with the shock mounts on, we're actually going to mount the shocks. You can see the difference. We're going to actually put these into the outside hole. So in this lower mount, these are actually use a 2mm nut, so which is going to be a 4mm nut driver if you have one. If not, you can use a set of like needle nose pliers or something small, but just to grab the nut. There's not a ton of pressure on these things, so you don't need to get crazy on them. And then in the top, same thing. So we're gonna put our shock guide bushing together and go into our shock mount here. And same thing with these. These also will have a screw and nut to them. And the mounting hardware, so that you will be included with these parts. So you won't be having to search for a 2mm nut to mount your shocks if you're just going to change the shock mounts. All right, so now we're going to repeat that on the other side. All right, so now we've got the full TLR tuned front end on this vehicle. So now we're going to repeat that on the back. So we're going to start by removing the shocks. So now, I'll actually bring this a little closer so they can look. You can see the front shocks are standing, they're a little further out, but they're still standing almost vertical, straight up and down. When you look at the rears, they are actually now tilted in a little bit, which gives us just a little bit different shock feel, and that's part of the tuning option. So with that, then we can adjust the collars. And there you go. The TLR tuned shock package on the Mini LMT. It's going to give you the dialed tuning that you need. If you want to learn more tips and tricks about the Mini LMT, you can check Losi's YouTube channel. Follow up for more videos there. We'll see you on the next one.